Hello, welcome to RESHAPE podcast. This is our fourth episode. I think you guys will really enjoy the guest we have today, Matt Turner. Matt Turner is Matt and I go way back, probably almost 20 years now. We were both coming up in the industry. I was on the construction side, Matt was on the design side, and we just kind of bonded through technology and how our firm started working together. As I said in the podcast introduction, Matt is one of my most trusted consultants. Whenever I have a question, I'm stuck, he's the first guy I call and always has an answer. And he's always challenging me to be better in new technology. So welcome, Matt. We are going to jump into our little market trend here real quick.
Thanks, Zach.
And so I was reading an article earlier this week about just how the AEC industry is going through a massive digital transformation. And anybody that's been in it, whether you're a contractor, owner, architect, engineers, it's touching our lives. And let me throw a couple stats out here that I pulled up. So John wrote this article. It's out there. If you just Google this link, you'll find it. One of the first stats that jumped out at me is that in the last 3 years, this was in 2019, in the 3 years from that point, the AEC industry technology softwares have exploded by 600%. And we've seen that. I mean, my whole world is on the web now. It used to be like if I had my software license, I was good. I had Excel files, I had all that. Those are gone. Everything I'm touching now is on the web.
Yep. Everything is cloud-based. That's where we're going as well.
Mm-hmm. There's other stuff that's coming too. I mean, I couldn't put all the stats in here. It's a good article. It's a short read. It takes about a minute to read. But 80% of field personnel are capturing data live now with many different devices. And we've got some people that we're trying to line up in the future just to talk about some of those devices they're doing on job sites. But so that's what's happening in our industry today. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Matt here. Let me get rid of these little, we'll go over here to our interview now with Matt. And okay. So Matt, like I said, you and I have been working together for 20 plus years now. And you have gone through some massive changes in your industry. Walk us through some of the early ones, and we're trying to, he's got a lot of great knowledge, so I'm trying to get as much out in the 15, 20 minutes we have here. But what are some of the early ones you had to adapt to? I mean, when we came in, like you and I were talking about a few minutes ago, when we came in out of college, it was, do you know how to use Revit and can you draw?
Right. And when I started, it wasn't even Revit, it was AutoCAD. They needed me because I knew AutoCAD very well. And, you know, that was the technology that Smith Group was using at the time. And then I had come from the automotive industry, so I'd already been doing CATIA and 3D layouts from beforehand. And they mentioned that they had a client that was savvy in BIM, and they wanted BIM to be used on their project. And that's basically what launched me from, you know, just being a detailer to, you know, being a BIM technologist at Smith Group. You know, so we've taken on, you know, the mechanical desktop side, which was like Autodesk's first soiree into BIM. And then we moved to Revit because the architects were just moving so quickly towards that. So technology growth has been amazing. And then to watch these other, like, you know, the other technology, other software like Navis, that's where I think both you and I kind of first found some common ground of Navis is going to be huge to us, right? And that's where we started trying to teach contractors, like, this is what the Navis model is. And you brought myself and Kevin Keeler in and said, what are we going to get from the designers, right? These guys have the models. What can we figure out from them that they're doing in the models to help us in construction? And you know, some of those early on groups talked about, well, why aren't you guys doing hangers, and why aren't you guys doing insulation, and why aren't you guys doing this and that? And we're like, well, we're still designers, right? We owe you a biddable, systematic set of drawings and a set of specs that say, if you use this, you got to do that, and if you use this, you got to do it this way. And we were like, we can't shoehorn ourselves in and then have you guys say, well, we didn't decide to use that, so redesign it now again with this so that we can build off your documents. We said, you know, very early on, we took the idea, like, we're not changing what we're delivering, we're changing our design process to better fit construction. So that was a big stepping stone of when we first went BIM, kind of not controlling contractors, but ensuring them that we're giving you the best that we can with the pieces that we have to give you.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm glad for those that don't know my history, my first degree was in architecture. I worked in architecture long enough to apply to take the license exam. So I got there all my internship credits I needed. I gained a great appreciation that really helped me in my career going forward was understanding that at the end of the day, like you said, Matt, you have to produce a set of drawings, and they have to be open enough that you can get multiple air handling units you can bid. You can't be sold out in, like you said. And so I try to remind a lot of people, especially when I teach associate general contractors classes on this topic, that they're doing they only need to go so far. They're not being lazy by any means. They have to produce a bid set, and it has to be open, And so good points. Let's fast forward a little bit, because, this was what you and I were talking about was about 10, 15 years ago in our careers. Actually, yeah, it was about 15 years ago. And how is it changing your workflow now? Because, for example, with all your stuff online, with hubs that everybody's sharing from around the world, you guys are working on projects around the world, and we've talked about several of those. How is it changing the way you're working as teams,
So, and then we talked a little bit about that point of, so much more is going to the cloud and things like that. And that was huge to me, because the idea of communicating directly from the field to a designer or an architect of record or an engineer of record it really sped up conversation, and it made contention between the parties a little bit better, right? Like, it used to be, well, if I create this RFI, I'm going to sit there and wait for weeks and weeks and weeks for the engineer of record and things like that. What I've seen a lot of, and BIM 360 and even to a certain Procore and things like that have made it an ability to have that app on your phone, take a picture of a field condition, relate it to some PDF that is of the documentation, and really get a ball going of what exactly are they asking, and not just these, what a lot of engineers and architects on my side tend to say that, well, that's a nuisance RFI. If you would have just went to this detail 2 pages later, you would have found exactly what you want. Well, what we found is that the picture really that they've got in the field really goes to say, yeah, you covered 99% or 90% of the locations, but we found one that doesn't quite fit the mold. And then we can say, okay, yeah, you're right. Like that exit sign being there is causing an infringement on the smoke detector. So let's redevelop that. And you as the contractor just can't go moving a smoke detector and understanding whether or not it's still in, the right amount of square feet. So that part of digital technology is just awesome. What I would love to see a little bit more of is the contractors willing to work on the architect of record or the engineer of records hubs, or a better integration between two hubs. That to me is a big one.
We had that discussion yesterday at the kickoff meeting. We're doing another Amazon warehouse right here in Lansing, Michigan. And we talked about that with the discussion of all of our teams coming together, which was odd, was, okay, you got, Motor City Electric has their hub for electrical. We had our hub, and we're drawing HVAC and piping. The designers have a hub. We had 3 different hubs at the table, and we're like, is somebody willing to host it? What is it? What are the pros and cons of the architect hosting it? What are the pros and cons of collaborative hosting it? These are our discussions nowadays, is where are we putting our data, and who's going to control it? And one of the flip sides of this, and actually I selfishly push for us to host it because, about 2 years ago, you introduced us to Clarity, which was an amazing thing. We're still working on getting that worked out still. But if I put my hub on somebody else's, I don't have the ability to control how Clarity behaves, And so these are the crazy things we're fighting about now, is who's controlling the data, not what level are you. We're past level that you draw to. It's who's controlling the data.
Yep. And to that point, like, we're just now finding ways around some of those situations, right? So we figured, what if the project architect isn't us and we're the engineers of record? We have to go work with them, but our engineers have Navis workflows that we want to be able to use Clarity on and things like that. So we've actually, gone to a point where we say, all right, we just need a user control at yours that our Clarity system uses. We'll copy the files over, the published files from them, do our work, and then push them back up and upload them to their sites. So
can you give them a quick, for the people that are watching and watch this later, can you give them a quick 20-second recap of what Clarity is? Because we threw it out there. You and I know what it is, but a lot of people probably don't.
So Clarity is a task service that you can install on a single computer or a server that would fire off multiple computers, kind of a situation. And it basically can query the live models, open them up, look for sheet sets and say, I'm going to print PDFs or I'm going to push NWCs off of these sets of views. And it can also automate some publishes, which is very interesting, how you can start using that and then copying files to other folder locations for other people to reference and things like that. And it's a really powerful tool. Revit 2022 ends up giving you the ability to export PDFs. And between Clarity and that export PDF task, I've gone from a 30 or 40% success rate on automating PDF creations at the team level to a 100% creation of PDFs. And my teams are just like, this is amazing. We took a stick set mentality from our 2D days in AutoCAD, where we literally printed DW, hard copy drawings every week and built stick sets. We do this digitally now, and there's not one person involved in the setup, the actual execution. They only manage the setup portion, and we just.
I like to equate Clarity to an employee that doesn't sleep in my office.
Yes.
And when it's not working, I always tell our guys, I'm like, look, if this employee's not working, we've fired them. So that's always my task. If this thing is down, that's like having an employee not show up for work.
Yeah, it's not cheap. But when you look at it the way that Art just described it as, this is an employee that I paid one time for, but I can use him 24 hours a day, 365 in theory.
Yeah. All right. I didn't mind. We tabled that longer than I wanted to, but these are the things we're talking about. Is these transform your industry? When you want to go on a couple others, we had a couple other things that you were going to talk about. We were talking about also how this is integrating the outside partners. So you talked about contractors getting involved. You talk about outside engineers. How are, let's say, the owners, the contractors, how are they changing the way they interact with you guys now? I mean, your design process is a long process, and they come in at different levels, and all of a sudden they're throwing waves in the pool,
Yep. And we were early adapters as well. So a lot of the owners and contractors that we were worked with they were like, oh, we've heard about that, but we haven't dabbled in that. And we just said, well, let us open the door to you to see your project or the project you're going to be working with us at earlier levels, right? So we let them inside, but that's one of the beauties of the Autodesk Construction Cloud is that I can kind of manage what they can do and what they can't do. So we have certain clients that at the beginning we just let them see the workflow, right? Like here's the set of PDFs that we're kind of working on a weekly basis. And we would then start saying, well, do you have design reviews that you want to kind of give us some, look into? And we gave them markability, right? So now that they could actually, we would create 3D views and say that this is what we're presenting. What do you think about it? And they could put their mind to it. And when you're in the office with them, they get really tied down on the colors, and that's not the color blue, and that's not the color brown, and these kinds of things really will slow down meetings. When you give them an early look at it, you get a better feedback when you're in that meeting with them. They're like, I was looking at this, and there was a point where I rotated around, and I was like, wow, what would be really great there is a window to look outside, because outside is beautiful in this site. And all of a sudden our designers have this idea like, oh, well, yeah, we can make something like that happen for you. Or what if we created a new, we take this wall out and we can look down into that foyer or something like that. And then you can see outside, and people were like, oh, this is a great idea. So those kinds of ways of just changing the way that they look at things, change the way that they gave us feedback.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I know BIM seems to be the underlying theme of a lot of the things that are in our world, but this is really just a digital workflow change that is, I think the owners are really gaining the most out of this. well, I think the owners and the contractors are getting a lot more benefits than they used to get because of these open workflows you guys have, the ability to communicate faster. I remember a stat years ago that 90% of owners don't understand a 2D plan. You know, so your ability to get them in there and actually engross them in the environment, like you talked about that window, that's huge.
Yeah.
You know? One of the things, let me ask you how's it affecting your teams? Because we used to say, I mean, when we started, like you said, AutoCAD and Revit, it was disconnected. How is all this connectivity changing? I mean, you think about now, how many people are usually in a model on a given day when you guys are working?
So that's drove a lot of different things, right? The number of people in models has drove my workflows to separate models out more. I'm from the MEP side. We used to try to create one MEP model so that we felt more integrated between the trades. But you know, the condensed timelines and things like that started throwing more people in the model than Revit really can handle, right? Like to me, six to eight people is all Revit can really handle in one central model. So if you're going to have a hospital that's going to have 5 mechanical guys, all of a sudden electrical can only have 1 person. That doesn't really make sense. So we've started separating a lot more out. But it's still integrated really well because of all of our cross platforms and live linking. That's the biggest one to me. If I worked with a contract or a non-Smith Group firm, I maybe got CAD and early on BIM files on a weekly, maybe even monthly basis. Now that I can work live on the cloud, I can, within a save and me reloading your model, I know if we have an issue really quickly. Now that's not how we work, but it's available to us. If you say, I just made a huge change because of some sort of demand issue, and I can say, okay, I can go verify whether or not this is working out for everybody really quickly. Mm-hmm. And then one of those also things that didn't stop, right? So I've worked with a lot of architectural firms that are like, oh, we want your live models, we want your live stuff, but then they will constantly call me about ceiling diffusers and light diffusers that they need coordinated. And I'm like, we haven't seen your model change to be able to accompany that. So how am I supposed to just be in a reactive mode all the time to you? So we used to set up, dead linking just for that. And we still have client or engineering firms that we work with that will tell our architectural teams, we'll never be working on your live model. You'll give us a week to catch up. Mm-hmm. And we usually agree with that, but it's easier now, right? So I have design coordination on BIM 360 hubs that I can just say, just publish this model once a week, put it over in the shared view. Everybody's up, models get updated once a week. That part is much easier than, oh, that guy went on vacation that sends you the PDFs every Monday, but he's going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks. Or he's off on PTO because he got hurt for the next month. And now I have to train somebody new to give me those files. Mm-hmm. Those things have, really streamlined. But again, like the idea I mentioned earlier about design reviews, we really, as the designers, have to hold clients and contractors a little bit to a task, right? Like, we understand you would love to see 3 or 4 more options in there, but we all still have that goal of, January 3rd, this is going to hit the streets and we're going to get it bid. And if we do that, we're putting that in jeopardy still.
Let me shift gears a little bit. So, you're talking about a lot of the teams that are working in there. What about, from my days when I was in architecture, we had, usually 3 to 4 detailers per project manager. How is this changing the game for the project manager? Like the way he can see stuff and mark stuff up. How has that changed for the manager?
Yeah, at first it was very scary. They didn't want to do BIM 360 and things like that. But the communication and markup features that at that web interface and at your app interface that it's basically feeding has really made them feel a lot more comfortable. Again, project managers, they find that avenue like Procure or Tonic or Nuforma, and they feel real safe in there. And then they're like, this web interface isn't going to be where I talk to people. And then all of a sudden I show them like, look at how much faster I got you to tell that one person who you wanted to tell that this is wrong, and it self-generated the email and all of this based off of the technology I'm getting you to use, which is really kind of based off the technology that I have to use on my design side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know this back end has been probably what's been the most transformational for me in the last 2 years. I mean, I remember when you approached us about this, I was like, what am I looking at here? You know, it was a drastic change going from what I was used to of screenshotting stuff and creating an email and all that. It's to the point now for us, and I'll show, you know, at the end, wrap this thing up, I'll show a workflow that I was introducing to a home builder. Like I was even actually introducing this to home builders, but I'll get to that in a minute. But for me, it's to the point now with my team, I'm like, don't email me stuff. Put it in BIM 360, because then I can find the log and I can communicate to all the parties that need to be involved instead of digging through email chains, and which that's my pain. If people email me, you better text me because it gets buried, you know?
Yep. So we have a similar thing at our standards level, right? We have all of these details, and I have multiple offices, and those details have to be generic enough to fit all of our offices, but all those details also have to be able to move up to feature seismic for my West Coast people, or do different types of systems for the people in the South and things like that. So we've had, you know, I've been on that review committee for 12 to 15 years, and our details just have not grown as fast as we thought they would. And what we're finding is that people find ways to take and mark up or communicate, and nobody else knows that their conversations are going on. And that the idea of issues and markups at BIM 360 has taken our details to a different level really quickly, because we all go to the same spot, we all mark it up, and it's an easy conversation to have between, you know, on the engineering side, we have 200 people that want to be able to review details and say, let's make them better. And we have a group of 6 people that have to kind of like take all those people's wants and wishes and get it focused in on what we really are going to do. And this has been a great way. Like we can just say, you know, your markup is valid, but it's only for this one hospital system. So we're not going to make that change, but that might be an engineering note. Like if you're using this in a hospital, you should do this too.
Yeah. Matt, I know we could keep going on and on. I'll give you one last question here. What is the one thing you want people to walk away from, whether it's contractor, owner, either other engineering firms that are looking at all this stuff? What's one last thing you can give them that you think is going to be very valuable for them?
What would be? So I think just communication, right? Like everybody thinks that digital and these kinds of things, they might not, you might not need to communicate as much. You do need to communicate. You're just going to try to probably change it so that it's happening in the right place. And that's where I really think BIM 360 is ideal. If you're having communication at BIM 360 via issues and markups and your PDF sets that everybody are the right drawings to be working on, you're going to have more conversations that mean something versus emails that you're sifting through of why did I get this email? Because you can really drive down and really drive home a point. And like I said, and you started it off, 80% of markups are coming from the field versus via some sort of, phone or iPad. And that's where we want to be. We don't want you to have to go back to the trailer, remember what you saw, text it out, type it all out. Yeah. Communication is still key. We still need to communicate, even though we're doing all of these cool things.
Yep. Let me shift gears here. And I think this will play, Matt, it'll be great to hear your feedback on this, but let me share my screen here real quick. 1 second. So this is let me take our pictures off. There we go. So this is a little project. We're working with a little home builder up in kind of the Thumb area of Michigan, Saginaw area. And we approached them a while ago that, BIM can work in the residential market. It seems like it's not really worth their time and effort. And so they had us test a model. You know, we created a little model. And this is all on the BIM 360 hub, like Matt's talking about. Little simple house, nothing special about it. And you can click little views, and all the drawings are in here. You know, there's a lot you can do. You can section it. I think I've shown that before. That's not the point here. As I was talking with these guys, they were like, "We're gonna have access to this." I said, "Yeah, you're gonna have access to this on an iPad. All we have to do is give you, you know, link you into the project." And they were blown away that they could, like Matt was saying, like Matt, we didn't talk about this, but these guys can section this model, turn things around, and we can see any section we want. We're not at the mercy of all the sections that Matt's team has time to draw. We have the ability to use the technology to our advantage. And one of the things that the contractor was just amazed of was how fast, like we could go to our 2D sheets. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Let me back up here. But they'd have this on their iPad. Here's what Matt was talking about, these issues here. Oh, that's creating one. Let me get out of here. This is why I hate doing live. I knew I was gonna have some data here. Here we go. So all their drawings are right in here. And this is a small little house. It's taking a second. There we go. So we can click on any view we want. They've got the drawings on their iPad. They got the model on their iPad. They've got everything they need to do. We can easily mark up an issue like Matt was talking about. So say there's an issue with the header clearance right here on the stair, going down the stairs in the basement. You quickly just tag an issue. It's taking a second. And away we go with communicating. It's not, come on.
Yeah.
I think it's for lagging. That's always the hard part with live. But you can tag right here on the drawing. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I got to create the issue. I had it pre-recorded last night, but I didn't load it. But so I can go in here. I can put all the information in here. And the game changer for this contractor was, whoa, we're always at the mercy of our CAD departments, creating drawings, sending them to us. And then I said, you guys can create issues and assign them back to us and put deadlines on them. You can mark things up if you don't like something on the drawing. If the dimension's wrong, a wall needs to move, you send that to us. I said, some of these things are so simple, we could turn it around same day, worst case, next day. And so it's changing even small industries like this. And everything that Matt's talked about, I mean, this is a massive workflow mindset shift more than anything. It's not so much the technology, it's just a mindset and communication shift.
And there's like 1,000 other parts to this too, right? Like, so every one of those little blue links is a hyperlink back to the drawings. I can assign it to all of these different people, roles, or companies. I can assign due dates. We can get a task list. There's hundreds of different things that you can start grouping these under and using to manage the people in the field. It's you know, to me, this issue and markup piece is everything we wanted to come back to the BIM model in our PDF documents.
Yep. So this Matt, like I said, Matt Turner, he's with Smith Group JJR. He's my go-to expert on this stuff. I mean, I have not run across. I mean, there's probably other intelligent people out there, but Matt's my go-to guy, and Matt's a great resource. I'd encourage you guys, if you're watching this, you have tons of questions. Look Matt up on LinkedIn. I'm sure he's a busy guy, but he's always made time for me, and he'd be worth your time. Matt, really appreciate your time. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. Let me close this out here. Just to close up the show here, guys, I want to introduce our next guest that we're going to have in 2 weeks. Actually, next week, because we had to push Matt back to this week. I'm bringing in Clarence Carson, who is the director of Chicago Public Schools Facility Management. And Clarence and I go back to grad school where we met. And just to watch what he's done in the city of Chicago and to hear from an owner's perspective of what is he looking for in the designers? You know, how is it affecting his world? Design changes, what's all this technology change? And so I think you guys will really enjoy that one. Again, Matt, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And we will chat with you guys later.
Thanks, Art.